They did an incredible job of setting up that circus, because it has to be said, we're on a budget. When that script comes in and there's a budget with strongmen and fire eaters and mermaids and stuff like that, you go, oh my God. It's a very clever piece of design, a lot of which is sleight of hand. You feel like you're in a circus when actually there's very little there.
Tonight we are in Butte Park and we are out in the thick of it in our circus.
The circus actually is one of those great things in design where it looks 10 times bigger and 10 times more expensive than it was. But it was actually incredibly simple construction. And we placed that in a completely empty area of Butte Park in Cardiff that was sort of away from anywhere. So it didn't have any of the sort of 21st century trappings of the city in the distance.
The process of getting everything and hiring all the different bits and pieces has obviously taken weeks to put together, especially with the 1920s theme of it.
And we went to a couple of real circus agencies and said, look, we need some people who can do the kind of circus acts that was sort of existed in the 1920s, 1930s. And they came along and they just did their performance.
We were kind of in the middle of the park and there was nothing else around, and then there was just this sort of eerie little tented village.
Design had done this fantastic job of the sort of opening mouth that we first see the Ghostmaker standing inside. It looked absolutely fantastic.
For you tonight, a once-in-a-lifetime show, never to be forgotten for the rest of your lives. Why not step inside?
Cut, thank you. I think it's lit beautifully as well.
I have to say Simon Butcher, who was the director of photography for that episode, also had this idea of bringing in what are called light balloons, which are, as you'd expect, huge, big helium balloons with a light in them, which you just weight down, and it just gives this glow over everything, which is really quite beautiful. You don't always get with other types of lighting.
It works really well with the storyline. It is what you picture in your head when you read it, and it's interpreted so well as a set that, I think it's fantastic for this particular plot line. And because we're seeing it so many times throughout the story as well, it's a really important set to do.
The lighting and the design and the camera moves and everything just made it look $1 million, which was great.
In this story, Torchwood are dealing with something that's beyond supernatural, that's beyond science. It's something they've never dealt with before, something they can't really make any sense of. Everything is outside of their experience, and they have to find new ways to deal with it.
In shows in the past, I've used people coming in and out of photographs, and I thought it was too good to lose. I wanted to extend it and make it take them in and out of moving film. So the thing was to choose the right sort of villains to inhabit that film.
The idea of a circus ringmaster and Pearl going through the streets of Cardiff as serial killers, completely insane, completely terrifying, completely wonderful.
I wanted them both to be evil, and I wanted them to have no sympathy whatsoever for their victims. I wanted them to be evil personified.
There's a line in there where they go to the restaurant owner and Pearl just says, "Make her cry."
You what?
I want to drink her tears.
And you just think that's such a great line. There is something really quite malicious about them. And sometimes when you've got those kind of almost caricatures, it's great fun to play with that. When Ray, our costume designer, is first putting ideas together, he'll source lots of pictures from lots of different research.
I found a head and shoulders of a traditional wooden ringmaster puppet.
He'll just put a few pictures together, and one of the pictures that he'd sourced was this wooden dummy.
So as soon as everybody saw that, they said, yes, that's the feel.
And actually, if you look at the picture of the wooden dummy and you look at what the Ghostmaker eventually ended up looking like, they are incredibly similar. That was the picture that we all kind of pointed at and went, that's creeping us out, that's making us feel uneasy, that's the look we should go for. And it all goes down to a primal thing of actually what still freaks me out as a grown-up. And if you can capture that in some way, in a character or in a monster or in a thing that you can put onto screen that is threatening your heroes, so the threat feels real, then yeah, that should scare the audience.
David. This way, please.
She's a bad girl. She's probably somebody who came from a nice family. This is when she wasn't a ghost years ago and completely just went off the rails and decided she was going to join a travelling show.
Pearl just had to look beautiful and stunning in that kind of 1920s film way, and she did. So the two of them together look completely out of time.
The look for Pearl for me was that I wanted her to look like she lived in water. I wanted her to be iridescent looking. I knew they were going to get wet a lot, and there's only so far that you can take waterproof makeup. We could do 3, 4, 5 takes. So I wanted to make it quite a clean-cut, simple-looking makeup that, should it not last, I could do it very quickly on set.
In the bus stop scene, we wanted to create quite a heavy rain there because I wanted to make that scene very atmospheric, and we had quite a big setup there to create rain. You have to sort of be quite precise in what you're doing, otherwise it can not look real, and because often you're coming down through the rain, which will kind of show up any lack of depth you've got in the rain.
Just seeing Camilla at the end of each take, she just had to get cold, bless her.
It sort of got steadily colder as the night went on.
It's one of those questions a lot of people ask me when they see those kind of scenes is, well, presumably it's warm water. It's like, no, it's not warm water. If you warm water up, then it gets full of germs and algae. So it has to be natural temperature, which is cold.
By the end of it, I was desperately trying not to shiver. And actually, because your brain's so engaged with what you're doing, you know, while you're actually shooting it, you're not cold. But it's only afterwards where your body just goes, oh, I'm freezing, really uncomfortable. But everyone was lovely and looked after me very well with lots of hot water bottles, so it was all fine in the end.
No, Gemma's brother couldn't bring me home. His car don't work. But what about Dad? Can you wake him? Mum?
Would you like a ticket for the travelling show, my dear?
No, thanks.
Every young person's dream.
Perhaps she'd like to join the show instead.
Why not? You could travel with us. Forever.
Look, just go away, will you? Did you hear what I said?
You know, when you're trying to do something quite filmic and cinematic, I think the sound is incredibly important, you know, the music. You know, when you haven't got so many cuts and you're relying more on camera moves and you're trying to build suspense and atmosphere, music is absolutely paramount.
It was clear from the offset with this episode that it needed to be a mixture of kind of fairground style, slightly innocent, childlike themes, but mangled so that you get that horror element, and that's quite a familiar device. And we have a theme for the Ghostmaker, and we have a theme for Pearl, and those are the two main themes in this episode. I wanted to combine electronic sounds and music box type sounds, so we're using the Celeste and we're using the piano. The Celeste is really, it sounds like a music box, and it makes such a difference because it's such a resonant and beautiful instrument and very mechanical, and when you record it live you get that kind of clunky sound, which is exactly what I wanted. The scene in the bath when Pearl jumps out is terrifying. But it was another iconic shot of that bath with the water overflowing. It's very Hitchcock. I think in terms of scoring tension and fear, it's almost about what you don't do than what you do. So knowing where to leave the gaps, knowing where to add the shocks. You know, and that's the game. That's what we try and do.
Well, I always like to make the audience jump if I can.
So it's a real horror movie moment.
I just think it would be quite natural for her to be in a bath, underwater, and then it's the old trick of rearing out of the bath, you think someone's dead.
So when you read the script, those are often written quite simply, those scenes, but you have to kind of think back. You know, what appear to be quite ordinary scenes of someone emptying, noticing their door slightly ajar, and you start building it up.
You get to here. Yeah, exactly. It's a bit more tentative, you know what I mean, as you're approaching, you know. Sure.
You have to kind of get the rhythm and pacing right of those little scenes which end up as one sequence.
It's using the old, oh no syndrome. We provide our own fear by thinking that, by saying that to ourselves, because we know it's coming.
It's getting the lighting right, making that quite eerie. We've got this very beautiful sort of effect on the bath, where it's almost quite green and quite surreal. And I think when she comes forward on that, it's almost like your own POV of this woman jumping up at you. I went handheld with that, because if I'd used a track, I couldn't have really got so tight into her on a wide lens. So I thought that worked pretty well.
I mean, I'd be terrified if I saw someone in my bath. Certainly dressed like this.
Right there, please.